we believe that being a defender requires more than building shooting skills on a range. It's also a development of the heart, mind, body, and spirit. Join us as we explore what it truly means to be a defender in your training and in your everyday life. Welcome to Defenders Live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Defenders Live. I am your host, Laura Thorson. Tonight, we're going to be learning about the legal reality of self-defense. As a firearms instructor, I do my best to stay educated on this topic, but this is something that we all should learn more about. I think many times in firearms training, a lot of emphasis is giving to skill building and learning how to run your gun really well. And I think a lot of people sign up for those classes because they're fun, and I get it. But I think that there are other areas we need to be giving attention to as well. And that one area we're talking about tonight is what happens after a self-defense encounter. And I think it's important that we all learn about that. So my guest tonight is Howie Marbury. He has experience both as an attorney and a professor in criminal law, as well as a firearms instructor. So quite the combination. And he's going to help us unpack some common misconceptions, as well as help arm us with some good information so that we can make good decisions as gun owners. So stay tuned for that here in just a little bit. But first, I want to say, if you're new or watching this as a replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Please drop in the comments where you're watching from. We always want to hear from you. And I want to give a huge thank you to this week's sponsor, Haven Defense Company. Brent and Marissa Hickman have been supporters of Defenders Live since day one. They own a Colorado-owned business, and they specialize in high-quality holsters. They're my go-to people for all things concealment, and their customer service is stellar, as well as their knowledge about holsters. So I personally carry a Haven Defense Company holster every day on a Filster Enigma chassis, and I invite you to check them out as well in the comments, the description below. I put a link to Haven Defense Company there. As well, Adam Winch, the founder of Defenders USA, is with me tonight, helping me behind the scenes. I'm back. I disappeared. I don't know where I went.
What happened?
I don't know. Were you running the show while I was gone?
No, it disappeared. No? Howie and I've been playing behind the scenes trying to figure it out.
Okay. All right. Did you hear my shout out to Haven Defense Co?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you disappeared.
Well, that's because I mentioned your name, Adam. I said you would pop on the screen from time to time, and then, I think you broke the internet is what happened.
What do you expect? Hey, so we've had some technical difficulties. We got them, looks like, ironed out. And by the way, Laura, Howie is standing by.
Yes. That's why I pay you the big bucks, Adam. Thank you. All right. So a few announcements before we bring Howie on. Thank you guys for hanging with me there. I don't know what that was all about. Probably my internet, because I live in rural Montana. So I've done everything I can to make it as the best it can, but still. Okay, so a few announcements before we begin. Defenders Live is now officially on almost every podcasting platform, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so you can listen. You can listen there. So be sure to subscribe there as well, and leave a review if you like what you hear. We'd really appreciate that. And you can also make sure you don't miss another episode of Defenders Live by going to defenders-live.com and signing up for email notifications. It's at the bottom of the homepage. Just type in your email, and I will send you an email out every week on who to expect for the next week. So you can also join our private Facebook group as well. So don't be shy. Chime in on the comments. If you have questions as we go along here, we're going to have a live Q&A at the end of the broadcast with Howie. So if you think of something, just pop it in the comments and we'll get to those at the end of the broadcast. Looks like we've got a few people shouting out. Hey, Lynn and Kathy from Arizona. I see you guys tonight. Chuck from Texas. Thank you for watching. Haven Defense Co. As always, thank you for being here. Mike from Helena. Hey, Mike, I see you. Heather from Arizona. I don't know who else is. Well, just keep putting in the comments, guys, where you're watching from, and we'll get on with the interview here with Howie. So Howie's experience, as I said before, is as an attorney and a professor of criminal law. And paired with his experience as a firearms instructor, gives him a unique perspective into the legal realities of self-defense. I'm really looking forward to this interview. Howie, also known, well, it's Howard, also known as Howie. I hope he's okay with calling him Howie, was the assistant state attorney for Miami-Dade County State Attorney's Office, as well as an adjunct professor of criminal law at Miami-Dade Community College. In addition, he was chief counsel and later senior attorney for the Department of Homeland Security. He's also an NRA firearms instructor, Rangemaster certified master firearms instructor, and deliberate coaching certified instructor through the Complete Combatant. He is trained with Rangemaster Force for Training, Citizen Safety Academy, Gabe White, Brian Hill, and Scott Jedlinksi. So let's welcome Howie onto the show. Hi, Howie. Let me unmute you there.
Laura, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Howie was having some trouble getting on the StreamYard thing. I don't know how it worked, but I'm glad you're here, sir.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad Adam was able to work this thing out.
Yeah. That's great. So let's rock and roll. We've got a lot to cover here. So I would like to start with the interesting reality that you were an attorney and you're also a firearms instructor, which is a really unique perspective for you. How did all of that come about? I'm curious.
Well, I've always carried a firearm. I've always loved shooting, even when I was a prosecutor, up through the time I was with the Department of Homeland Security. So when I left the department, I retired from the department, I wanted to find something new that I was passionate about. And I kind of was concerned about the level of teaching, particularly of the law to people in the community.
Yeah.
So to do that, I wanted to become a firearms instructor. That was my passion. I really didn't want to do law that much after I retired, but I ended up doing it because of the reality of what was being taught in the firearms world. So I started just in Florida and started doing permit classes. Lucky enough to meet Tom Gibbons early in my career, and he kind of mentored me and essentially showed me all the things I didn't know, which was a lot. And then luckily I ran into Brian Hill, and I've just been blessed to meet different people in this community that have ushered me along. So really my plan was to be a firearms instructor.
Okay.
But I ended up doing this anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's really remarkable. And there's so much to be gained from that because of your unique perspective. So that's why I'm so excited to have you on tonight. So here is, I think, let's start with some of the common misconceptions. There are a couple of things I want to unpack as far as common questions that I get in my classes. And then we'll finish up with a couple more things here. But let's start with your background. You mentioned that there were things commonly taught.
Yes.
That you may not agree with, or they might not quite be right. What are some of those things?
Well, I think initially, I think a large part of the problem is we don't have people who are well-versed in law are trying to teach law, right? The NRA specifically forbids their instructors from teaching law. That doesn't stop them from doing it. And the rest of the people get these lovely PowerPoints that address some issues of law in a very general way, but when they're asked questions, they just go off on a tangent. Also, I teach out of R&D Tactical, so I get to see a lot of different people coming in to the range and listen to the misconceptions that they have. Not only that, but the ones that are also in my class. So we want to talk about the idea that if you use a firearm in self-defense, you're definitely going to get arrested, right? There's a misconception that the state is out to get you if you use a firearm. And I've never understood where that kind of came from. As a former prosecutor, knowing prosecutors for the past 20 some odd years, there's no government attorney that's out here going, that's a justified case of self-defense, let's throw you in jail. It just doesn't make any sense. So the whole idea that the system is out to get people who are justifiably using force is one that's kind of made up to sell things, right? I think that it's important to understand that there are outliers. There are people who are mistreated in the criminal justice system. It's a reflection of the community in which we live. There are some times that things go wrong, but overall the justice system works well. It's the best working justice system in the world as far as I'm concerned. I haven't seen one better. So the idea that, if you justifiably use force, that the powers that be are going to do everything that they can to destroy your life are just untrue. The statement itself that you're definitely going to be arrested if you use force in self-defense is not true. So going from there are where the misconceptions begin, right? Unfortunately, I feel like most people really don't have a good grasp of what our criminal justice system entails, their rights in the criminal justice system, and how their criminal laws operate. Whenever I ask questions in class, I'm amazed at the lack of just foundational knowledge of your rights that people have and the ideas that they have regarding what they can do in terms of use of force. It's shocking and it's scary. So that's why I started started doing the law class.
So what are some of those things that you're talking about, foundational knowledge? Where can somebody start to understand that?
Well, I think it's important that, you take, to a large extent, I feel like people have left agency on the table in terms of self-defense law. They've let other people kind of substitute their judgments and knowledge for theirs. They haven't taken responsibility for learning their own law. It surprises me how many people don't know who their local sheriff is and what his positions are in self-defense. It surprises me how people don't know who their local prosecutor is and what his positions are in self-defense. The overwhelming majority of people that I see and speak to live in conservative communities with conservative political establishments. So I don't understand why when they use a gun in self-defense, they think they've moved to California when prosecution comes, right? All these people are not going to change their views just because you use the gun in self-defense. I think that there's a large body of the firearms community that is invested in getting people to buy things and scaring them into buy things. And one of the problems I have with that is we keep putting up barriers to people defending themselves. We start with the kind of gun that you have to have. Then we go on with the kind of training you have to have. And now you have to have some type of insurance in order to carry a gun. Otherwise, you're going to go to jail and lose everything you own. And we can put barriers in front of citizens that are stopped. They have a chilling effect on them carrying weapons, right? And that's the problem I have with it. That's why I love Claude Warner. Claude Warner kind of understands. He's an iconoclast in this industry. And he kind of understands that, most normal people are not going to have problems with this. They can carry a sky. They can, act judiciously with their gun if they're knowledgeable of the laws, and they're going to do just fine. I would hate to see a person say, I really want to carry a gun, but I'm scared of going to jail. I'm scared of losing the little that I have. I think the safest thing you can do in a conservative county is to kill somebody in your house that broke in. I can't see anybody arresting you for that, right? We have this misconception that anytime you pull a gun, something bad's going to happen to you. It's just not true. You need to understand.
I mean, I know that for a fact because I have taught curriculum like that, and it was required that I teach a certain curriculum. I'm not going to name names, but it wasn't Adam. but there have been times where I've had to teach a certain curriculum a certain way, and when you don't know better, right? So what you're saying is the best thing that you can do is arm yourself with the knowledge of what the law is in your state. Is that what you're saying to people?
Oh, most definitely.
That's where you begin.
I don't even understand how you can carry a gun and not know what the statute is governing self-defense. Right. I'll ask people who have been in this game for a long time, what's the statute that governs self-defense in your state? Have no idea. Have absolutely no idea. We spend a lot of time training in our community. We don't spend any time learning the laws, right? We don't spend any time figuring out how these things work. When's the last time you went to court and watch the criminal case to see how this process actually goes down? How much money have you spent on learning the law in your state, right? We spend a lot. We love shooting. We don't particularly like learning the law. So we like to watch.
Well, it's kind of boring. No offense, Howie, but it's important. I get it.
I think it's really interesting. One of the things I love about active self-protection, and they are just wonderful people. I love them. One of the things I love about active self-protection is they put out a new self-defense video every day. And if you just take the time to follow those cases to their end, you get to see that most of these cases work out when nobody gets arrested for justifiable self-defense cases, right? And the cases where people did get arrested, you're like, oh, that person probably should have been arrested. But like take the case in Texas that happened at a taqueria. There's a guy walks into a restaurant, and if you watch this video, you see a man who at the beginning, at the inception of the event, justifiably defends himself against an armed robber in a restaurant. But then he walks towards the door, and when the guy's already shot, he's already on the ground, he's not moving. He puts what John Correa calls the coup de grace, right? The coup de grace. He just shoots him in the head a couple of times just for good measure. Now, anyone watching that would say that just looking at the video, that clearly on all fours was a violation of law.
Yeah.
But in Texas, he went to the grand jury and they came back with no true bill, which means they felt, listen, that was justified, right?
Wow.
So, I mean, I don't understand why we insist, on telling people that live in conservative communities that they're in threat if they, use their gun in self-defense and it's justified. It really isn't if you understand the rules. And the rules are quite simple. Criminal law is perhaps one of the most available laws to learn, right? As opposed to admiralty tax or any of the other laws that you could possibly study. Criminal law is really a reflection of our society's values, right? If you don't like criminal law, you have the opportunity to change it. We have access to our state representatives. We vote for our chiefs of police. We vote for our sheriffs. We vote for our prosecutors in Florida. We have to kind of take agency over how these laws are being administered. And what we've seen is a trend towards a much more, justifiable use of force. More and more states are adopting stand your ground laws. More and more states have civil immunity if you are justifiably found to have used deadly force. So, I mean, it's becoming more and more available while people are somehow becoming more and more afraid of using it and have perceptions about.
Do you think that is in part because of the insurance you're talking about? What exactly is that? Is it insurance or what?
I'm not sure. Technically, some of them don't call themselves insurances. Some of them are underwritten. I think that they began nice enough. Like the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Fund was a group of men that were in the firearms community that got together and said, if we ever get in trouble, we should probably have access to some funds for an attorney. And I think that's a pretty good idea. It's what they realized is that there's a lot of money to be made if we can just convince everybody to take it, right? If we look at all the self-defense companies, I think only one has had a trial. Only one has had a trial. So if shooting people was automatic, jury trial coming for you, and you were going to be in jail until the end of it, you would think that there would be a whole lot more people going to trial with these insurance companies. And it just isn't the case. I think the insurance companies, my problem is not with them, it's with a misunderstanding of what the policies cover. People tend to think that they cover everything with regard to carrying a gun, and that's just not really the case with the insurance companies. They cover you if you do it correctly. They do not cover you if you do it incorrectly. So in the world of a Venn diagram, you have a circle where you've correctly and justifiably used self-defense. And for some reason, some prosecutor, for some crazy political reason, is going to go after a citizen who's never been in trouble with the law. And those are the cases that they're going to cover. If you do this inappropriately, they don't cover you. Some of them don't even cover you if you take a plea, which I think is kind of horrible. 99% of the cases we deal with end up in some type of plea arrangement. Pleas can be anything from jail time to nothing, right? It could just be an expression of the fact that maybe we're not going to look into it, but we're going to offer you a withholding court cost in Florida, which is not even considered a conviction, right? We're not even a period of reporting probation. You would be insane not to take that plea. You would be insane not to take that plea. But if you took that plea, then some of these companies will say, now you owe us all the money back, because if you take any plea whatsoever to any criminal conduct, then you're not covered anymore. And they can say that they don't enforce that provision, but if it's in their contract, it's they can enforce it, right? Some of these companies don't cover domestic violence. Well, who are women most likely to be assaulted by? When we look at crime, someone that they know, generally a man in their house, right? So not covering domestic violence, I think, is a big error in some of them. Some of them don't cover for brandishing. You don't get a chance to pick your own attorney. I don't know anybody who would want to put their life on the line with a person that they didn't pick, who doesn't necessarily believe in them and they don't like, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think picking an attorney is a very personal thing. You need to have a connection with that person. You're putting your life in their hands. To say that I'm going to allow someone else to pick my attorney is kind of insane, particularly when you don't know the political philosophy of the attorney, how they act or how they feel. I would be hesitant to go with someone whom I didn't know.
So you think the best step then is to know the law, know it well, and have an attorney on speed dial that you know specializes in criminal law and that you personally know, like you know them as a person.
No, just kind of like if you have a heart attack, you don't keep a cardiologist in your back pocket. You go to the cardiologist when you need one, right? There are ways to be able to find a good attorney.
Yeah.
You go to the courthouse and talk to the clerk of the court. You know who knows who good attorneys are? Police officers know who good attorneys are because they're the ones who cross-examine them, right?
Right.
Judges know who good attorneys are. The clerks know, the bailiffs know who good attorneys are.
Okay.
The time to start trying to figure that out, is when you get in trouble. Any attorney that is practicing criminal law can get you through an arraignment, right? It can get you through an investigative stage. It's if things get serious, then you want to hire the best attorney that you can afford.
Right.
But quite honestly, I mean, when we look at really good justifiable self-defense cases, most people are not hiring attorneys and they're resolving just fine, right?
That is just crazy based on all the, training that I've gotten on this subject. That is just wild for me to hear.
As a C prosecutor in Dade County, I had over 500 cases. I have no interest in putting a person who justifiably use self-defense in jail. I have plenty of bad people. I have plenty of work to do.
Right.
That I don't have to, go after a person who has justifiably tried to protect themselves. It just doesn't make any sense. I think you could ask any prosecutor in any jurisdiction, including liberal ones, whether if a person came to their office with a justifiable case of self-defense, would you prosecute them? That's how you know. Not only that, there's prosecutorial discretion, even in iffy cases like the one in Texas. Criminals have no lobbying group. If you're a piece of crap as a human being, no one's out here like crying over you. Particularly when you broke into someone's house or you tried to rape someone, right? Citizens are generally given the benefit of the doubt when criminals attack them. It's very rare that you have occasions where self-defense is used in a home environment or with a robbery where there's a problem. All right. I live in Florida. I've seen it a ton of times in Florida. I participated in Florida. I've seen it in Texas. I've seen it in Tennessee, which I happen to look at quite a bit. I've seen it in Georgia. If you live in a conservative town, the sheriff of our town is Sheriff Billy Woods. And I think if someone tried to rob me at Walmart and I put two in his chest and one in his head, Billy Woods may give me a parade. There's a strong possibility Billy Woods would give me a parade down in the middle of Ocala. As opposed to throwing me in jail for the night. So, you have to kind of look at the situation in which you're in. And there are places that are very liberal and where you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. New York comes to mind, New Jersey, Washington. I don't think they can write policies in those states where it's problematic. But even when you look at cases in those liberal areas where it's justified, they're generally being found not guilty. And the crime that they're committing is generally having the gun in the first place. It's very difficult to find a case on all fours where it was a good justified self-defense case and somebody prosecuted them and put them in jail. Which is why whenever anyone talks about this, whenever anyone brings up the fact that, you're going to get arrested, these people are going to come after you, they're bringing up these old cases. They bring up George Zimmerman. They bring up Kyle Rittenhouse. They bring up Bernard Goetz, which is 1980s, right? This is how far they're going back. You know why? Because there's no case from last year that they can bring up, right? There's no case in the jurisdiction of the old lady who shot the burglar and got prosecuted that they can bring up. If they had those cases, they would tell you about them. They just don't exist. Where are they? Anytime somebody talks, where are they? Where are they? Where are the cases? Where are all the cases? If it's true, where are they? And no one seems to have an answer for it. I like to see them. Just,
So then what is the process then after you've used your firearm in self-defense? What does that look like?
Well, listen, there is a way to get yourself in trouble, right?
Sure.
There are some basic rules that you need to follow. One of them is getting an attorney involved early, and two is not saying anything, one, or two, making 2 or 3 positive statements about the circumstances as they occurred and then leaving it at that. And then invoking specifically your Fifth Amendment right.
I was wondering about that.
The reason why I suggest making 2 or 3 statements, if you're disciplined about it, is if you shoot someone in self-defense, there's probable cause to believe that you committed a murder, and it gives probable cause for a police officer to arrest you. But if you can tell them that you did it in self-defense, which kind of shifts the burden, they have to prove that you didn't do it in self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. If you tell them that you did it in self-defense and the facts support that, right, then it becomes much more difficult for them to, justify arresting you, particularly when there's a dead body in your living room with a broken front door. If you're nervous and, one of the stress responses is loquaciousness and you like to talk a lot, you can talk yourself into prison. Police officers are very good at getting you to talk. That's what they do. Professionals in interrogation. We're not professionals at repelling it. So, my advice is, and I give the advice in my class, I give you 2 or 3 statements that I want you to make. And then I just want you to shut up and get an attorney. Because you can't, if you don't say anything, then we can fix it. If you start saying all types of crazy things, it can get you in trouble on a good shoot, right?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
That might cause you more difficulty than you need.
Okay.
So, yeah, you need to know your law. You need to, make these 2 or 3 statements if you can. If not, shut up. I can get you out of jail after 24 hours. I can't change anything that you say, right? Mm-hmm. If you're in jail, I can get you out. I can bond you out of jail if you shut up. I can get you out, and then we can work on your case. If you go in there and give a full statement and you say things that are against your interest that have nothing to do with the case, it can get you in a world of hurt. So if you're not going to take my advice and memorize these lines, then I want you to just be quiet, and then we'll take care of it. But what I found is that even people who are unschooled in the law, if they've acted responsibly in terms of their use of force, they generally won't get in trouble. We have people in Florida that have, shot people, breaking into their house and went and stayed the night with the police officers and gave them full statements and were released the next morning because they've done nothing wrong. I think that's a dangerous way to do it. I think you can get yourself into trouble, but it works out for a lot of folks, right? So, yeah, I think the idea that, justifiably using deadly forces, could be the end of your life is overblown. I really want to encourage people, and particularly people on the margins, to carry their weapon and defend themselves from the bad people that are out here. One of the things about being a prosecutor, you see all the people that get hurt, right? Mm-hmm. You see all the people that are coming to your office who've, been robbed, who've, been battered, who've been assaulted. And now you have somebody who actually, fought back, and you think that those are the people that were put in jail? Nah, that's not quite how the legal system works. And if it did, you should be concerned. You should really be concerned if that's what your local prosecutor thinks, that there's no good use of a gun and anybody who does it should be thrown in prison. That's something that you need to correct. That's something you need to get out there and start fixing. Mm-hmm. But I don't see that generally. I don't see it generally. It wasn't the case in Dade County. And Dade County is perhaps one of the most liberal counties in Florida. It wasn't the case there. It is definitely not the case in Marion County and Central Florida. Sheriff Grady's out here telling citizens that, if somebody breaks into your house, shoot them good. Shoot them good. Shoot them to the window.
Shoot them good.
Shoot them good. Don't play games. Don't
Hi, Adam.
With the criminals.
Adam, hey, come on.
Hey, Howie. So I like how the fact you talked about, give them 2 or 3 good statements, right? Or really the reasoning behind it. Can I ask you, here's what I've always advised people. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Of course, obviously identify yourself, tell them how they can get a hold of you, who you are and how they can get a hold of you, right? Your address, your phone number, all that other stuff. But 2, give them, I've always told them, give them, general basic statements, right? Hey, I was here pumping gas and this guy attacked me with a knife. or tried to stab me with a knife, so therefore I defended myself and my family. Or, somebody kicked in my door. I was defending my family within our home, and, the guy got shot. Keeping it that way, basically, hey, I'm a concealed carry holder. I had to defend my family and my home, whatever it is. And from there, then, beyond providing identifying information, then I've always advised people, hey, with all due respect, sir or ma'am, right? Obviously, it's a police officer. With all due respect, sir or ma'am, I think I need to talk to an attorney here. In fact, I know I need to talk to an attorney here. So with all due respect, I'm going to wait until I have my attorney present for any further statements. So that seems to back up what I am saying, or are you and I on the
same? That's exactly what it is. My language might be a little different. Generally it's something like X did something to me and I shot X in self-defense, and that something has to be something you can shoot him for, right? It either has to be the guy was executed some type of serious bodily harm or death, or a forcible felony in most states qualifies, and it met those characteristics. I shot him in self-defense. I really want to talk to you further. You could throw in, I'm scared, but I just want to wait for my attorney before I say anything else. I will cooperate with you fully as soon as my attorney gets here. And a good cop's going to go, good, be quiet. A good cop will tell you that. Right?
Yeah,
this looks good. You should, that's a good idea.
Yeah, as a cop there, I've stood there several times, be like, hold on, talk to your attorney. Right?
Especially in the age of body cams, right? Everything that you say is captured now. There's no fudging it. Like back in the day, there was fudging it. You can't fudge anything anymore. Body cameras are on at the time they get to your house. So you got to be really disciplined. And if you can't be disciplined, because it is a stressful situation, then shut up. If you can't be disciplined, then be quiet.
I'm just glad for you to hear it. So for those of you listening and those who will be listening later, right? Tell them who you are, where they can find you. At that point, very basic, generic statements. I like how the fact, Howie, you're talking about, hey, excuse me, I purposely shot them, but here's why. They were doing this thing, and I was terrified, thought I could die, so therefore I defended myself for those I love. And from here on out, let me talk to an attorney, and no disrespect intended. So sounds like we're truly on the same page, and I'm so
glad. I don't think that's pretty much it. I love it. That's what I would tell them to do. Okay. You can't get yourself in trouble if you don't say anything.
Well, I think that it's extraordinarily unlikely anybody that's listening to the sound of our voices will ever have to use a gun in self-defense. But at the same time, I mean, it happens 1 to 2 million times per year here across the U.S. So though it's low, like, excuse me, been sick recently, but low, like getting hit by lightning, the possibility is there. If you've not pre-thought through your legal response in that moment of, I don't know, in the aftermath of the adrenal dump that just happened, right? You'll have the verbal diarrhea to say too much, as you just talked about. And boy, we've got to think about that ahead of time. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
And I really want you to understand the law on a level that, you can articulate exactly what happened and why that was, and why self-defense was necessary as a response to it, right? Mm-hmm. If we know that forcible felonies are justifiable, that you can threaten or use deadly force to prevent the commission of a forcible felony, if we know that that's the law, and we can articulate that it was an aggravated battery, that the guy came at me with a knife, if we can articulate that it was armed robbery, or unarmed robbery in Florida still counts as a forcible felony, right? Because it's any felony where one of the elements is the use of force. So any of those forcible felonies in Florida can be used to justify you using deadly force to stop it. If you know what those forcible felonies are, then you're in a much better position to be able to articulate to a police officer briefly why you use deadly force. All you got to do is say, I came out of Walmart, the guy tried to rob me, I shot him in self-defense, I really want to cooperate with you fully, I just want to wait until my attorney's here. And that's it.
Boom. Exactly. Right. Boom.
But you have to be able to articulate why you did it. And you got to be careful. I wouldn't even answer the question, how many rounds did you shoot? And
no.
Safety concern. And police have a legitimate interest in asking that question, right? If you shot 7 rounds, they have a legitimate interest in finding out where those rounds went, right?
Well, I can tell you right now.
That either.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, right? Don't get into how many rounds, because I'm going to tell you right now, you won't probably know how many rounds you shot. You just won't do it. The brain does certain things that are just, oftentimes it fills in gaps that it doesn't remember, and it fills them in wrong. Or it creates things that aren't true, that you don't realize aren't true. and then it's later used against you to make you look like a liar you're not on the stand. So therefore, the less you can say with, this sounds weird, with as much specificity legally you can, as you said, articulate the forcible felonies. If you can understand your laws within your state, and some states have forcible felonies and others say it a little bit differently, but if you can know those things, it's so imperative that you, the listener, know the laws of your state. Or if you're going to be in other states, right? Howie, you travel a bit teaching firearms stuff and other things. I travel a bit teaching firearms stuff and things. And sooner or later, we're going to get Laura to travel some and teach.
Oh,
anyways, when you do that, you've got to know the laws of the state you're in so you can articulate it if you have to pull the gun, right? I ran off to Chicago, bad idea. Ran off to Chicago to do some gun stuff with Gabe White. And I got to thinking there, if I had to pull a gun, do I really know Illinois law? So I took the time to study Illinois law. So if I had to talk about intelligently of their version of forcible felonies, I could do so. So I'd encourage, because we have a group of people here that follow us who travel quite a bit. Right. So therefore, it's incumbent upon you as the responsible defender to have a generally good idea of what the laws of the jurisdiction with which you're going to, if you have to use that gun, so you can articulate it in a way, because as Howie just said, right, you just basically said it. The cop doesn't want to put you in jail if they can help it. The attorney has too much other dirt bags to deal with. So if you can give them a reason to not arrest you, they're going to not arrest you. But you got to know how to be able to do that.
Right. I suggest people, one of the easiest ways to do it is to look at the jury instructions for the different states that you're going through.
Yeah.
Every Supreme Court, for the most part, issues some standard jury instructions. And although they can change at the request of the parties, generally they're given as they are for the most part. And their jury instructions are made by attorneys to explain law to non-attorneys. So the beauty of it is that it's very accessible. And you can just take a look at those self-defense statutes in the states that you're going to be traveling in. And what you find is that there's a theme. All of these states follow kind of a theme in terms of their self-defense statutes, right? And once you learn one, then you can kind of recognize the similarities between your state and their state and look at the differences, right? So you can just harp on what the differences may be between your state. Like, where can you bring guns? Where can't you bring guns? Those things are always important. But the standards for when you can use deadly force, there are some things that are almost always there. If someone's trying to kill you, you can, right? In 1898, you've been able to, the natural law of man has said that you can defend yourself, right? In every state. Now, whether it's forcible felonies and how they characterize those forcible felonies, that's what you kind of have to look at. But you also want to make sure you're not violating any of the other state statutes about bringing guns into alcoholic establishments, trespass signs. You want to make sure that you're following those little things too. Whether it's mandated that you tell the officer that you have a gun if you get pulled over for anything. Those are the things that you want to make sure that you understand when you're going from state to state. So it always helps you to just take a look at the laws before you go. And go, and that's one of the ones you go through too.
And that's so good you bring it up, right? I mean, our laws are really based upon Old English, common law of England, and also Blackstone's and everything. So therefore, the commonality, the legal commonality of the themes amongst those pretty much spread across all of our states and our territories. So generally, once you understand the defensive nature of using a gun, or really defending life, whatever tool you use, it's pretty much about the same. The real disparity I find is really when it comes to, okay, can you go into this place with the gun? Can you not? You got to tell the cop if they stop you, do you not? But really the defensive life laws seem to be generally the same state to state, whether it's literally New York, California to down to Montana of all places, right? Seems to be about the same. So so that's good. So anyways, brother, I'm so glad you're here. Laura, you two beautiful people do stuff. I'll step back.
Well, it's good that you brought that up because one of the laws that Montana has and a lot of states have is they have castle doctrine and they also have stand your ground. Can you explain what those two things mean to people if they don't know what those are?
I think it's easiest to understand stand your ground as an extension of castle doctrine to the street with you, right? The castle doctrine just stands for the old common law notion that you don't have to retreat in your own home. And now you don't have to retreat in the street. right? Prior to the passage of stand your ground laws, if there was a way that you could retreat safely in the street from someone trying to harm you, you had to avail yourself of that ability to leave. With stand your ground laws, you don't have to. And I think the beauty of stand your ground laws is, the person who is the aggressor in that situation is the wrong party. And we were putting a duty on the innocent party to do something extra in order to protect their lives. And that was problematic, and it led to problematic outcomes. So stand your ground is really just an expression.
But it's good to know in your state whether or not you have that or not, right?
And, we have to be careful with the retreat rule. It's really not that bad, right? It's retreat if it's reasonable. If a person has a gun, it's not reasonable, right? You can't retreat from a gun. So, the retreat rule never comes up if someone's trying to shoot you, right? And if you have any physical handicap, it's a second guessing game. And generally prosecutors, unless it was clear, the tie went to the citizen, right? So we still get around that with reasonability in stand your ground and self-defense, right? Almost every state you look at has a reasonability component in terms of self-defense. So the way you kind of insert the retreat rule into a stand your ground analysis is to say, well, you didn't act reasonably in your use of self-defense, right? So if you're sitting in your car and you're watching a guy from a mile away run at you with a bat, and you can drive away, but you're just sitting there watching him, and then when he gets within 5 yards of you, you light him up with your Glock 19. Well, there's going to be a question as to whether you acted reasonably in that circumstance, regardless of whether you're in a stand your ground or retreat state.
Right.
So you always have to, reasonability is going to be the overarching theme of every self-defense case.
Yeah.
So even though you might have stand your ground in your state, you're going to have to kind of answer the question as to why you didn't avail yourself of the ability to drive away if you had the opportunity to do so.
I am so glad you said that, because it is not a free pass.
No, it's not a free pass. I encourage people to be judicious in their use of force, but when it's necessary to do what you have to do. I just don't want people to be worried about, disproportionately worried about the legal consequences of the criminal justice system, particularly in a state where where everything about where you live is conservative and people are like-minded. It just is not as much as a threat as people think it is and what I hear it is. I'm much more concerned about those who just totally misunderstand the law. Tell me they can shoot people in their backyard. Tell me they can chase people down and shoot them. Tell me that they can brandish a gun, in preparation because they think something bad is going to happen. Those are the things that I'm concerned with, because those are just fundamental misunderstandings of the law. And that you have to correct, right?
I do have a question. I get this question a lot about warning shots. What is your opinion on that?
Well, they're illegal in Florida, and and they're dangerous everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's a manifestation of the fact that you don't want to hurt anybody when you're shooting a warning shot too. You don't know where that shot is going, right?
Right.
So in Florida, it's clearly against the law to shoot a warning shot. It's nuts. If somebody gets killed by it, you're definitely going to be held liable for it. It's just negligent. And that can happen anywhere. It's not coming to me any state that I know that allows warning shots. I don't know any state that would allow.
Yeah, but there are a lot of misconceptions about it.
Oh God, no, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no warning shots. No warning shots.
Thank you for saying it.
Well, it's one of our safety rules, right? You got to know what you're hitting, and you hit what you're aiming at, right?
Yeah.
We don't have any misses. We have unintended hits. Bullets don't stop because you think it's a warning.
Right.
So, no warning shots. The person needs to be shot, shoot them. If it doesn't need to be shot, don't shoot them.
If they need to be shot, shoot them.
If they need to be shot, shoot them. That's the way it is.
Okay, let's see. We're getting towards the end of the hour, guys. So if you have questions for Howie, then put those in the comments and we'll get to those here shortly. One more thing I want to touch on, maybe two. One more thing for sure.
Sure.
Is that a lot of states, and I think these are interchangeable. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Constitutional carry and permitless carry. Are those interchangeable, or are those two separate things?
I've never really thought about it. Constitutional carry in Florida was a specific statute that said that if you, meet all the requirements of 790, that you can carry a gun concealed. Permitless carry, I think everybody I'm not sure if there's really a difference between them. I think they're
interchangeable, but I wasn't sure. So.
I would have to look at that. I don't think there's much of a difference
Okay.
In actuality, though, in the way they
Yeah.
work.
Right. Okay.
In
Well,
Florida, the limits are still imposed upon you as if you had a permit. So you have to follow all the rules for a permit holder. Now, I would assume that would be the same in states with permitless carry, but I'm not sure because I haven't really looked at that issue.
Okay. Now, then another question that I get a lot is, oh, well, then why do I need to get a permit in my state if it's not required to carry concealed? What are the advantages to having a permit?
I can tell you
Or
what
are
the
there?
advantages are in Florida. Well, the biggest one is reciprocity, right? So states give you reciprocity on their permits because you have a standard for issuing a permit, and they have a standard for issuing a permit. They don't necessarily respect it if you don't have a permit. So for Florida, if you want reciprocity with 37 states, you have to go through the process of getting a permit. 2, I like a permit for traffic stops. I think it's important to put police officers on notice that you have a gun regardless of whether the state requires it or not. So my advice to my students generally is, you're going to give them license, registration, proof of insurance. And on top of that, I want you to put your permit. I mean, officers have some specific fears on walking up to a car. They don't know whether you're a felon. They don't know whether that's your car. They know who it comes back to, but that guy could be bleeding out in the trunk. When you hand an officer a permit, what you're telling them is what? I'm not a felon, right? Because if I was a felon, I wouldn't be eligible to have a permit.
True.
And that's a major concern for police, right? This is the guy who's telling me that he has a permit. This is the guy who's telling me he has a gun. You haven't said the word gun, by the way. You've just given him a permit. And it's important for us to put the officer in control of that situation. It is a very dangerous time for a police officer to be at roadsides, and it's incumbent upon us, contrary to popular opinion, to make them feel at ease when they come up to our car.
Yeah.
So turn your lights on, give them your permit, don't make any sudden moves, keep your hands on the steering wheel, and do exactly what they say. So they're going to ask you if you have a gun in the car, you're going to tell them, keep your hands on the steering wheel. They're going to ask you where it is, you're going to tell them, keep your hands on the steering wheel. Then it can go one of 2 ways. The officer can either tell you, listen, you don't touch yours, I won't touch mine, and we'll get this little traffic ticket over with. Or 2, I'm going to have you step out of the car. I'm going to secure that gun. I'm going to unload it. I'm going to put it in your trunk. I'm going to continue this traffic stop. And then when I leave, you can go and get your car, your gun, retrieve it, and put it back wherever you want it. Both of those are acceptable. The only thing I would caution you not to do, particularly in rural communities, is to take the gun out yourself. Some officers will request that you.
No, don't do that.
Some officers will request, where's the gun? It's in my appendix holster.
Here it is.
And you're still try and grab it out. Officers are riding one to a car, another officer. Even if they ask me to take the gun out, I'm like, put me in handcuffs, you take the gun. Because I don't want to be seen with a gun with an officer on the street. Another officer rolls up because he's heard the call go out. Now he sees me reaching with a gun. Absolutely not. Yeah. So that's the only thing I would not do. I don't touch a gun under any circumstances, even if the officer tells me to. I let them retrieve it, right? And some officers will tell you to do that, which is kind of insane. But some of them actually tell you to do it. But I've had very good success with that. I think it's important that we make officers feel safe in that environment. We don't want to make any sudden moves because that's what gets you hurt, right? Yeah, that's what gets you hurt. It's a very dangerous situation. If you've ever gone on with a police officer on a ride along, and I encourage you to do so. Yeah, because you stop the car in the middle of the night with a PBA sign on the back, and you're walking up there, and the cop's like, "Look, if anything goes wrong, you got your gun, right?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" No, if anything goes wrong, I'm running, shoot them. It's pretty scary. So I completely understand, why they are the way they are. And you try and make them as comfortable as they can, and let them do their job.
Howie, you brought up something really cool, right? You just jogged a memory. I was walking up on a car one time, and Grandma Good Cookies pulled out her 38 special. Hey, officer, here's my gun.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. That might work out good for Grandma, but I don't know if that's working out good for that crazy-looking teenager.
You could tell she was Grandma Good Cookies. There was no reason to panic, but she was trying to be nice and show me I have a gun, and you're like, "Oh, lady, look." One more thing to add to what Howie said, right? Is me as a cop, usually if I'm pulling you over, unless it's a high risk situation, right? If it's just a standard traffic stop, I'm trying to figure out who you are, why you're driving, like whatever you're doing, or really I just want to put you in jail and I'm not sure why yet, right? I want to figure out, do you have dope? Do you have warrants? Do you have something, right? They all want to go to jail. They just don't know it yet. So I got to help, right? So you know how to look for people, right? So usually a good cop is going to run the plate ahead of time, and in the states I've been, oftentimes that concealed carry permit is attached to that name, which oftentimes attached to their plates, their registrations, everything. So when I, as a cop, would run a plate, if it somehow threw the jump of names and everything attached to a concealed carry permit, me as a cop, I suddenly was a little bit more at ease going up on this car because I know, like Howie, you just said, right? They've passed background checks. They're not felons. They've maybe done some training. They've done something. And so to me, that's showing they've had a responsible mentality in their heart. They've stayed generally not a criminal, at least not a caught criminal, to where they could get a concealed carry permit. So there might possibly, probably about 90% of the time, be good people. So to me, the second I ran a plate and found out somebody had a concealed carry permit before I even went up on them, I already knew those are good people. And you know what? I might call that stop sign or that red light a pink light instead of a red light, right? I might have been a little bit nice on the ticket that might have come instead of giving them a ticket in the first place. So to me, I find it, as a cop, I find a concealed carry permit generally a get out of ticket card before anything else. So I thought that was an excellent point you brought up.
Okay.
Hey, Axel.
So anyways, I'll jump back out. I loved how you brought that up.
Great. Okay, well, we're almost at the end here. How did an hour go by?
I don't know.
And I just realized you put Howard on your name thing. Was I allowed to call you Howie? I never did ask you.
Howard was taken when I was on Facebook, so I'm Howie on Facebook.
Oh,
so everybody who knows me from the shooting world knows me as Howie, and that's fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. I just didn't know. Are we good enough friends I can call you Howie?
Yes. Everybody calls me Howie. That's fine.
Okay, good. Awesome. Well, go ahead, guys. If you have questions for Howie, put those in the comments. I see Kathy has a good suggestion here. This is really good, Kathy. Thank you for reminding me, because I should have put this in my notes. The role of social media. What role does social media have in a defensive situation?
And as a prosecutor, I'm going to tell you right now, we can pull everybody's social media on an administrative subpoena. Right? We go for, if there's a question about your shoot, and what I mean is if there's a question about the intent of why you did what you did, and we're looking for information about who you are, we'll pull your social media, we pull your Instagram, we'll pull your Facebook posts. All those things become information and evidence about who you are and why you might have done what you did. So I always tell people, police your social media. You can like a joke and not actually like it. You can like a joke and not send it to everybody, right? I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what your political beliefs are. But understand that the people on the jury, there's going to be somebody who doesn't share that political belief. So if you got that big bumper sticker and you killed somebody in a parking lot and that's showing up on the crime scene photo, there's going to be somebody on the jury that's going to judge you like you would judge the person from the other party, right? So you want to be careful. I don't suggest that you put anything on your car. I don't suggest that I keep my social media pretty tame, and I think that most people should. Listen, nobody cares what you look at. It's what you like and what you subscribe to and what you comment about, right? Yeah. And I think we need to kind of be careful with that because those things never go away. They absolutely never go away. I'm not a fan of you putting gun signs on your car. I'm not a fan of you putting any of those crazy signs in your yard. I'm not a fan of political signs in your yard, right? If you love Trump and the person on your jury loves Biden, they're thinking something about you about loving Trump. Just like you think something about people who like Biden, right? I don't need that heat if I'm your attorney. I don't need to persuade people about the
help your attorney out, people.
Right? Why don't we start off with them not knowing anything about you, and I can lie and say you're a great person. That's always a better way to do it,
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, okay. What about this? One more thing, because things just keep popping in my head. What about this idea of not allowing a police officer to search your car? Is that ever a bad idea?
Listen, I don't allow anybody to search anything. If a police officer can search your car, they don't need your permission, right? If they're asking you for your consent, then the answer is no.
Okay.
Respectfully.
Sure.
Respectfully. No. Do you mind if I look in your car? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay. Now, if they have a reasonable suspicion, reasonable articulable suspicion then yeah, they're going to be able. They're going to search your car. They can't keep you there indefinitely, pursuant to the Supreme Court, to hold you for a canine to develop probable cause. So just say no respectfully. No, I really rather get on my way. They're going to try and pressure you to do it. Just stick to your guns and say no. I don't allow cops to search my house. If a police officer can search your house, then they bust through your door. There's no asking
Right.
you. If a police officer is asking you for something, the answer is no.
Okay, that's good to know.
That's the general good attorney answer. If you have nothing to hide, and there's nothing in your car. I mean, there are people who allow them to do it. I just don't. I don't. I find it. You're just giving them an opportunity to develop something. So absolutely, they're fishing.
All right, good.
And I love the idea that if I was driving, I would have dash cameras. Cameras are lovely. Cameras don't lie. Cameras are lovely. They don't tell the whole truth, but they don't lie. So I love cameras.
Okay.
It has a chilling effect on bad behavior.
Yeah. This is really good information. Thank you so much for coming on. We have another question here. How does constitutional carry apply to non-residents to the constitutional carry state? Say I, Colorado, traveled to Florida and carried if I didn't have a concealed carry permit in Colorado. Does that make sense?
Okay, if you're in Florida and you don't have a permit, then you don't have reciprocity. Some states from constitution, but if I go to a constitutional carry state, I would be fine if I didn't have a permit. But for most states, reciprocity is dependent upon permit being issued. But constitutional carry states, they don't care whether you have a permit or not. It's your natural right.
So if you're going to a state that requires a permit, then you're going to need a permit in your state for reciprocity.
Generally, right?
Generally.
That's how Florida works. And I think that's how reciprocity works in the other states, which is why they honor our reciprocity. So I would just encourage you to look it up before you go. Look it up before you go. Very good.
Anything I missed? I don't see any more questions. I can't believe. I mean, we have a literal expert here for you guys.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, you're an expert. Yeah, you are. You are. So anything that Heather wants to know if you're going to be at the national conference, a Girl and a Gun national conference.
I am. I'm going to be working with all my great friends, and I'm on the cadre of CSA, and I'm going to be working with Akil Kadir and Tiffany Johnson, and one of my good friends, Tim Reedy's going to be there, and Adam's going to be there. There's a bunch of people going to be there, so I'm going to have a great time. I can't wait to work with those guys, and this will be my second year going to a Girl and a Gun. So
this will be my first year. Can you believe it?
Robin is amazing. I don't even understand how Robin does it. I think
I know.
It is such a huge operation.
Yeah.
Never seen anything like it in my life. It was truly amazing. And Colorado's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cameo is an amazing facility.
Oh my God. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it was real. I had to go touch rocks. It
is a shooter's playground, isn't it?
Oh my God. I want to live there. It's really nice.
Yeah, it is.
I'll be there. I'll be at the Mingle with Brian.
Oh, great.
Where's Brian? I'll be at the Mingle, and I will be at Asst with Neil and John and Stephanie.
Perfect.
And Natalie and all the people from Asst, which I really like.
So if you guys want to meet Howie, if you go to any of those places, you'll be able to see him there. We've been putting we've been putting your social media and your website up on the screen as we've been going here, so you can check him out there. What are we missing, Howie? What do we leave people with tonight?
I'm out. Well, let me tell you, I'm also working with Akil Kadir on the combative pistol, Rangemaster combative pistol. I'm AIing him on those classes, and I do a little legal presentation there. Oh. So if you were sitting on the fence about taking combative pistol, take combative pistol. It's an awesome class. Yeah. Akil is one of the best instructors I've ever met in my life. His resume is an encyclopedia. I'm still looking. I'm on page 397. I'm like halfway through. He's a phenomenal instructor. And if you get a chance to take any class with him, but combative pistol is really good, or pro social pistol, or parking lot pistol, or anything that CSA is involved in is just amazing stuff. Great people
for sure. Well, thank you for your time tonight. We made it through the hour. I think we've given a lot of good information to people to really help them.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, Laura. I'm glad I got to see you. We've been talking
so
hopefully I'll see you at a Girl and a Gun. Are you coming?
You will see me at a Girl and a Gun.
Oh, good.
Yep. Okay. Yep, you will. So thank you again for your time. I'm going to tell everybody what to expect for next week. So don't leave the studio. I'll just
Okay.
take you off the screen. If you'll just hang out, I'll be with you here in just a second.
Sure.
Okay. All right, guys. So let me see here what to expect for next week. Oh, but first I have to thank all of you guys who are on locals.com, my paid supporters on locals.com, on the Defenders Live community. You guys are the best. I love you so much. I can't thank you enough for what you've done. And I keep putting comments or keep putting posts on locals.com. And so for those of you that don't know what that is, the Locals community is where I post exclusive Defenders Live content that you won't see anywhere else, including early access to particular episodes. Recently, I did that with the Brian Hill episode. And it's also where I host Defenders Uncensored. Defenders Uncensored is a series of roundtable discussions where we talk candidly about issues that some people consider controversial, but we don't think they should be. And that is why they're on locals.com, because other platforms might not appreciate those. We just posted episode 8, so you can go there if you want to check that out. Episode 8 of Defenders Uncensored is called Cutting Through the BS. And I hosted a discussion with people from across the country who are deeply connected to and invested in helping our veterans and first responders. In that episode, we talk about what we think is really going on with the increased suicide rates throughout the country and in that community, as well as real solutions to help them. So I invite you to go check that out. Join the Defenders Live community at locals.com, and you go there and search up Defenders Live in the Discover tab. You'll find us there. And next week, I'm super excited. I just found out today that we're going to have a roundtable discussion with some really amazing women from Women for Gun Rights, which is formerly called DC Project. They recently changed their name. We're going to talk to them about some current events involving the Second Amendment, particularly as it pertains to Colorado, and something that recently happened in Missouri. And we're also going to talk about how you can get involved in your area regarding that. It's going to be a great show, and I'm really looking forward to introducing you to some really great women doing some awesome work with advocating for our Second Amendment. So I'm looking forward to that. And so you can check that out next week, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'll be here, and I can't wait to see you again. Until then, take care.